All right, so this is going to be our review of The Current War. A great movie starring Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Holland, the some other people
Michael
that,
Shannon.
and then what's Beast's name? Nicholas Holt.
Yep. And
Um, I
Catherine
know
something.
I know who you're talking about. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and start with Lamar again.
I was not expecting this movie to be this movie. I was hoping for more science. I
As opposed to like economics, like
Yes.
consumer.
I also didn't know of this Westinghouse guy.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Tesla and Edison.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And from everything that I know about both of them and what happened between them, the only thing I've ever read about or heard was about the science and about the difference in each current.
Yeah. In between Teslas and Edison's, right?
Right.
Or was it the alternating in the
AC and DC.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I didn't necessarily read up on or am not educated on the application
Yeah.
of AC versus DC. Just that they were different, what the differences were, and the two men who had those differences.
Yeah.
So,
Not realizing that the alternating originated with George Westinghouse as opposed
Right.
to Tesla.
Right.
Which I obviously didn't know either.
So, yeah, I was very surprised about the story being about the people and not necessarily the science.
Ah, I see.
It, because of that, was kind of boring. Again, it just wasn't what I expected.
Yeah.
I could also tell that this movie is 2 years old or however long.
Yeah.
It felt like it wasn't made in 2018
Gotcha.
or 2019.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was probably made in like 2016 because
Right.
it came out in 2017 in Toronto. So I agree with the fact that it was like mildly boring, just because like I like you, I didn't really know much about George Westinghouse either. I knew who he was from the trailers because I watched trailers, but I didn't know anything about that or about him apart from that. And so when the movie kind of opens up and he's Edison's main rival, it's like, okay, this isn't that interesting. And then you see that Tesla's working for him, and that's kind of an interesting angle because I didn't know that. And so that was kind of interesting for me, but I'm glad that you mentioned that disparity because I really came to this movie, or I really was excited for this movie because of A, Tom Holland, and B, I wanted to see Nikola Tesla.
Right.
Because and this is gonna get to a larger point, or my main point about the whole movie, really, and that's gonna be about how memorable these men are, and whether the most memorable of them is going to be Edison or Tesla. Because I'm not really including George Westinghouse, honestly, because we just said, neither of us knew who he was. But I think what was interesting about the movie is they made it clear that obviously like there's a reason that we all know who Edison is because of this parking lot right here. But I'm referring to the lighting in the parking lot. And so obviously like there's as far as like how our society runs right now, like of those three men, Edison was obviously like the most impactful one. But at the same time, when you think about how they presented Nikola Tesla in this, and how he was a futurist, and how like the way that he was thinking was just way different than the other two men, even though they talked about Edison coming up with motion pictures, which we'll get into. But at the same time though, like when you think about like how excited people get over seeing like a Tesla car or something. Obviously, Nikola Tesla didn't invent those,
Right.
But at the same time, that's still his name, and that's still branched out from what he did and what he created. And so I think moving into the future, Tesla is going to be a much bigger name than Edison at some point. And I don't know, maybe that's not true, but I mean, as far as like popular culture goes, obviously as far as like history goes, Edison will probably still be more important or more impactful. But I think as far as like how like technology evolves from this point, I think Tesla is going to be really, really important as well, at least.
I think he'll become more important, but, and I don't know what this generation or future generations are going to think about it, but to me, I can't think about either of them without the other one.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So whatever advances in technology come from Tesla's contribution,
you're still going to know it came from that race.
That era.
Yeah.
So those two they were the pioneers of electricity and of power conduction.
Gotcha.
So whatever accomplishments either of them have, obviously they're both dead, but their technology has in the future, to me, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because they're not unique to each of the men, but because of, again, they're in that same bubble to me.
And they spoke about legacy a lot in this movie. And I think the interesting thing about the ending...
There's a Tesla right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it that orangish car?
No, it's a white one pulling out.
Oh, I can't see it. It'll probably pass by. But, yeah, like they spoke about legacy a lot in these movies. And they talked about how the way that the movie ended was like, you know how any inspired by a true events movie ends, it had like little blurbs about what happened to these men at the end of their lives.
Right.
And they talked about how Tesla died alone in a hotel room, and he was never able to profit from his genius, basically, which is sad. But at the same time, like, he has a grand legacy in this world that he'll obviously never know about, but that doesn't matter. And Edison obviously has a grand legacy in this world, and he died with like honors, and they like, you know, they turned all the lights off or something when he died for a minute, which is cool. And so it's just like, it's interesting that it spoke on how in one moment, like, you can kind of be on top, and then the next moment someone else is. Because, like, for example, Tesla and George Westinghouse won this war that this movie was about, but at the end of Edison's life, he received the recognition, like, long term. But, like, what I was just saying, longer term, Tesla's gonna come back and be important again, and like you just said, it's gonna be the two of them forever, basically, when it comes to this subject. And I just think that the movie touched on that in an interesting way, and that's what made it interesting for me, is the points that they were making about the legacies of these men.
And the movie goes through, I think there were three. I know two of them immediately. I can't think of the third one. But there are three phases of how they define worth and legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It starts out with what you have is only as valuable as what someone is willing to pay for.
Yeah.
Then about a third of the way through the movie, it changes to how much it changes the world.
Yeah, because Westinghouse makes that point about, like, you leave the world a better place than you found it.
And then it says it's only worth the contribution it has on humanity. So the movie tries to evolve with these men on their journey through this power struggle, basically, is what it was. But at the end of the day, what it really came down to is this resource that they've just created that is available to the human race now.
Yeah.
And what the human race will be capable of with this new resource.
Yeah.
And George Westinghouse, one of the last things we see him say on screen to Edison, they have this metaphorical conversation about a fence. And one person comes up with the idea of the fence. Another person builds the fence. Someone pays for the fence. and then the neighbor has the fence now because he lives next to the person who bought this fence. And they're trying to decipher the morality of each of those participants in that particular story. And Westinghouse says, cut the cost of the fence in half. And then he says, that way no one can build the fence. And then your garden is twice as big. And that, for me, what that meant was, why are we trying to divide this resource?
Yeah.
Why not share it and understand we can both have more of it if we're not trying to take a piece of it for ourselves? And that's really, I think, the main message that I took from the movie anyway. Again, back to this resource that is now available to everyone and can now also do other things because it can be transported across the country, and then it can evolve to be, across the globe. So the movie, it had a lot to say, and it articulated its message while also showing you the progression of these men, their journey through this technological advancement that they were on.
Yeah, for sure. I loved the fact that, like, when you see the trailers and they call it the current war, and it has lots of different meanings and stuff, but it's interesting because the movie actually did play out like a war. It did feel that way, and so that I'm glad that they were able to deliver on that, because it could have easily not felt the way that it felt. But there really were, like, multiple different points in the movie where one person was ahead, the other person was ahead. Tesla was doing stuff in the background, and it was just, like, interesting how they were able to actually make this power struggle, like, very realistic. And obviously it's based on something that really happened, but, like, the way that they showed the different phases of the power struggle worked out really well. And it's kind of interesting because, like, it made this interesting point about, how you were just talking about, like, why don't we just share it or whatever, and, like, not having the fence. And that was a good point that Westinghouse made, but it was also kind of funny because, like, this whole power struggle was really based on the fact that Westinghouse stole that idea from Edison, like, more or less. And he made it his own, kind of. But, I mean, that's just how everything works in real life now with patents and ideas and stuff like that. But, like, I just thought that was interesting, that it's easy to say, why don't we just share it, from the perspective of the person who ripped the other person off.
So, and maybe I misread what was going on, but at the very beginning of the movie, it felt like to me, or the movie tried to present, that Westinghouse only wanted to build the generators. He understood Edison had the technology. He wanted to partner up with him and make a bunch of money.
Gotcha.
And then Edison said no because of the type of current he was using.
Oh,
so
yeah,
then
yeah.
That's when Westinghouse went to his lab and created the bulbs and the casing for his electricity. So yes, he did, steal his idea, but I don't think it was malicious from the get-go.
No, I wasn't saying it was a malicious thing. I guess my point about the message of the movie, and I guess now that you explained it like that, about how he wanted to make this part of it that would go with the whole.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't catch that the first time you said it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, because, like, the movie you don't really watch the movie like that from the point after Edison says no.
Right.
Because then after that, it becomes Westinghouse ripping him off. So that's the reason it looks that way, even though you're right, it didn't start that way. There was a point where Samuel Insull and Thomas Edison are fighting at the end, or, like, toward the end. And Samuel says that you didn't invent the incandescent, people just think you did. What did that mean? What did he not invent?
He didn't invent the light bulb.
Oh, what? Who did?
Somebody, I don't know who it was, but it wasn't him. He invented the filament and the current that charges through the filament and lights up.
Gotcha.
He didn't invent the casing.
Oh, the incandescent is the casing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's a true misconception.
Yeah.
Even today. People
Well, I
think,
mean, I understand it doesn't matter. Like
So-
he made the light. It's fine. But yeah, no, that's interesting. I want to talk about the motion picture thing, because if he did really, I mean, I'm sure he did. They wouldn't have just made that up. But like, I guess doesn't Edison have enough?
I didn't know that at all.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, did they need to reveal that to the
No, I
world?
think they did. Yeah,
Like-
we need to know that. Because a lot of us, like, honestly, it never occurred to me to even wonder who did that.
Yeah, me neither.
But now...
I assumed it was the same person who made cameras. But, I mean, obviously that doesn't make sense. But,
Right.
like, I didn't, like... I just assumed... I just assumed it was some random person that we didn't learn about. Why don't we learn about that?
It was probably a footnote because they were teaching us about electricity
Yeah.
and the light bulb, which was wrong.
Yeah, but, like, at a certain point, shouldn't they have been like, hey, also, all these movies you're watching, he did that too?
Again, I'm sure it was a footnote.
Oh, gotcha. Well, yeah, I don't remember that at all.
I don't
I'm going
either.
to have to start asking people
Right?
if anybody knows
Right?
that.
That needs to be a poll.
Yeah, put that up, because I was like, when I first watched that, I was like, what are we talking about now? Did this just become a different movie? Like, I'm confused.
It was odd.
So yeah, that was really weird to me, but it was an interesting like tidbit of information. Like, I'm glad I know that now. Because I mean, that like changes my point actually. You know how I was talking about how I feel like Tesla might become more notable in the long run? Well, movies are huge. Like, aside from lights, like, movies, like, have taken over our culture and the culture of the world to an extent. Movies and music. And so, that is very, very huge.
So, but at the same time, as we literally were just talking about, and how it compares or relates to Edison's impact and his legacy, if nobody knows about it,
Yeah.
it is not going to matter.
That's true.
That kind of blew my mind.
It just seems crazy that, like, no one has made a big deal of that yet. Like, with the power that the film industry has, and with Edison already being a name that everyone knows, it seems like they would have capitalized on saying more about
Or we're literally the two people who don't know.
that. Right? Seriously,
That could be it.
everybody else knows that. Has always known that. People listening to this are just going to be like, yeah. What? No, I really don't think that that's the case, though. I feel like that's something people actually don't know.
Yeah.
Just like I didn't know he didn't invent the whole light bulb, like,
No,
until just
fair
now.
enough.
I think I've heard, like, you know, like, there have been Family Guy jokes even saying, like, that Edison just stole ideas from people and stuff.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, like, that reminds me of, like, one of the biggest points I had from the movie, actually. Part of this is Benedict Cumberbatch. I love Benedict Cumberbatch, but he does kind of play the same character all the time. And so by that I mean, like, he picks historical figures that are just like that, I think. Like the guy from The Imitation Game, or Doctor Strange isn't a real person. But, like, he tends to play this character that is just really unlikable. Like, his performance is awesome. Like, it's great acting, but he picks these really douchey characters and these douchey people from history, and he reminds us that they're actually not good people, like Thomas Edison, apparently. And I mean, I've heard that before, so it's not like this movie is making me think that entirely. But, like, it was hard for me to watch this movie because I was like, I'm not rooting for Thomas Edison. Is that what we're supposed to be doing here? Because I wasn't. Because his character was an a-hole.
So,
like, I was, like, not into it at all.
Here's what's interesting about that, and this might just be another difference about how we watch movies. I immediately looked past his character flaws. I was rooting for his goal.
To not kill people? Because, I mean, that was the only difference between him and Westinghouse.
Whatever, he was trying to be the one, or the first, or the most influential figure to bring this resource to
Oh
the
no,
people.
I understand that, and I mean, I think that's my point though. Is like when and that's it goes back to what you just said. I did not look past his character flaws. I couldn't, because I was like, what you were just saying. One of these men is going to be the first to usher in, and I knew that who he was already. But I was like, one of these men is going to be the first to like usher in this new technology, this like revolution basically that's going to follow because of what they're doing. And I don't want it to be this guy because he's a jerk. Like, that's basically what I was saying.
I guess I just accept the fact that people are jerks.
Yeah, I know.
I get it.
No,
Okay.
I accept it too, but like, doesn't mean I have to root for them.
Oh, I'm not rooting for him. I don't care about him.
Yeah. Well, I know, but that's how we watch movies differently. I look for protagonists in movies, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like
The protagonist was DC. And
that's true.
The antagonist was AC.
In this movie, that is actually very true. That is very true. But I liked the fact that, like, I don't think the movie really, like you were just saying, like, the movie wanted to present it, I would imagine, how they most accurately felt these men were.
Right.
And if the fact is that that's how Thomas Edison was, then that's fine. But, like, I like the fact that it didn't shy away from that, and it didn't think, oh, here's this household name, let us make him look like what you expect him to look like. They actually like did their homework and made him look how he was,
right.
Which I think was good. Because like you were just saying, the movie wasn't really, as much as it was about the people, it kind of wasn't at the same time. It was really about this technology and how it was going to shape us going forward. Right. But so I guess like what was interesting to me is like there were times like they showed like the kind of nefarious things that each of them were doing, like Edison and his correspondence that he wanted burned that wasn't burned, and Westinghouse going and leaking the correspondence when he found out about it, which brings me to his wife's reaction. And I want to know why you looked at me like I was crazy. Because seriously, she was right. Like,
I guess it didn't seem like a reasonable reaction. I don't understand why she did that.
She was like, oh, thank God you have brains. Like, you did the right thing. Because he was expecting her to be disappointed with him. And her point with that kiss was like, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
I guess, to me, I didn't understand how impactful it was. Like,
I mean, that saved what they were doing, because like before that it was like, oh yeah, everyone was coming to the conclusion that Westinghouse was just like inventing this killer machine. But then when people found out like, oh, Edison's actually the one who actually created this thing and actually provided the tools for them to do it, and he was trying to use that machine to smear Westinghouse. So like without him bringing that to light, everyone would have just continued to associate that with Westinghouse, when in fact it was Edison who did it, and people needed to know that.
I understand.
I'm saying that's why she was happy.
No, I understand all of that.
Gotcha.
It didn't seem to me that the movie cared to present those stakes.
I felt the stakes.
I didn't feel those stakes.
Gotcha.
So I was like, what are you really reacting to? Nothing happened.
No, I felt those stakes. I think you might have just missed that.
Because there's a couple of lines of dialogue where Edison, he says, I don't want to be associated with this.
Yeah.
He says a few times in the movie that he doesn't want to make a device that'll take another human's life. And J.P. Morgan, once these letters come out, he says to him on a phone call, your name's been smeared all over and you've lost your reputation. And that's all that I saw. That's all that the movie gave me. It was just that line of dialogue. Oh yeah, that's something I would have expected though.
To me, oh sorry, continue.
I also didn't quite understand how he found that human rights activist, busted up his shop, and found those letters.
Apparently it happened.
It happened.
Like,
I mean, the movie says it happened. We were there.
But yeah, I agree with you, but like that's one thing that like wasn't just inserted for the movie. Like he actually did that somehow.
He did.
But I guess my whole thing with that, and yes, it was that one line that they addressed it, but I felt those stakes because the first offer Edison ever gets, the reason he turns it down is because of his like moral problem with creating something that kills people. So when we're first introduced to Edison in the context of this movie, my first impression of him was that, and was the fact that he was so adamantly against this. So for even just the reveal to the audience that he was like covertly doing this was a blow to his character, and was revealing some hypocrisy on his part. And I think the movie like slowly built up to the world finding that out, even though they showed us earlier in the movie. But like I was expecting it, because like from the very beginning, like as soon as he said I'm not gonna do that, and I thought, electric chair. I guess they just came up with that later while he was dead or something. I don't know the timeline of when that was invented. And so then when they mentioned that in the movie, I'm like, oh, he was actually a part of this. People need to find out about that. And then then it happened. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like they set that up well, but that's just me.
We talked earlier about character flaws.
Yeah.
When I said that I looked past his character flaws, here's, I guess, what I actually meant. I saw a flawed person. He wasn't a very good husband. He wasn't a very good father. He wasn't a very good socialite. He wasn't a very good friend. He wasn't a very good boss. His main focus, to his detriment, was his work.
Yeah.
His main dedication, to his detriment, was to his work. So when the movie presented this opportunity for him to take advantage in this race, in this war, and then for the movie to show us that he in fact accepted that opportunity to take advantage, it didn't surprise me. And yes, it set up that he didn't want to be a part of this violent culture. I also understood that what he was thinking is that those letters would be burnt.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have been associated with it.
Yeah.
So in his head, he wasn't. In his head, it was Westinghouse who created this chair. That's where I was with it.
Gotcha.
So,
but that's some kind of crazy thinking, though.
that's how he was thinking.
Oh no, I know, but like when I see someone thinking like that, I think you're crazy.
Oh,
like,
yeah, he
okay.
was. That's what I'm saying. He was a flawed character. I accepted and was ready to see.
No, I
that.
understand that too, and I accepted that as well. But like, I also like accepted, or like I was when I watch movies, I just think about like the creation of the movie and the plot line that they're going for. And so I saw a plot detail that I knew was setting up other things later. So that's why none of that stuff surprised me, because I was just like, oh, okay, they're clearly setting us up they're clearly setting this narrative up to reveal this hypocrisy that they've been showing us. So I'm not saying anything about him and his flaws or anything. I'm not saying he's a bad person or making any sort of like judgments about him. I'm just saying that like as the narrative that like I saw a narrative playing out from the beginning, like when they were first introducing us to these things that he was doing and how they contradicted what he was saying. I was like, oh, this is the route that they're going with this. So that's why all of that stuff made sense to me.
No, it made sense to me. I just wasn't let down by it.
I didn't say I was let down by it. I just said that I understood the wife's reaction, because like it made sense to me that she would be so happy that her husband like exposed Edison. Like from their perspective, Edison was doing something really terrible to them. So her reaction made sense is all I was getting at. Like if you're just putting yourself in their shoes.
No. We switch subjects.
Gotcha.
Because the hypocrisy of Edison and him saying this thing about not wanting to create this weapon, and then him creating it, and then him being outed as a terrible person. That's what I was talking about.
Well, yeah, no, but all of that works hand in hand, though, with what we were talking about. Like, yeah, so I guess my point, though, was like, Edison and his hypocrisy and all of the stuff about him is whatever. That's just history. That's just stuff that happened, and I don't really care about it. But, like, I guess my point was, like, from a narrative perspective, like, I was just thinking about the individual players in this movie, and if you look at what Edison was doing from the perspective of George Westinghouse, what Edison was doing was just completely messed up. And I mean, what all of them were doing was completely messed up. They were like screwing each other over the whole movie. But I guess, yeah, my point though was from their perspective, I can see why, like if I were her, and my husband's like, oh, I'm sorry, I know you're going to be disappointed with me because I broke into this man's house and stole a bunch of stuff somehow because I'm a CIA agent now. And then my response being like, yes, like, we need to have sex right now because, like, that's awesome because you just saved us. Because that's really what he did. He saved that whole situation.
I'm not disputing anything you're saying.
Yeah, no.
What I am saying to you
though,
is the movie didn't present any of those stakes.
I feel like it did.
To me.
Gotcha. I feel like it did. It presented all of it.
I didn't see any. I didn't care.
Well, you might not have cared, but
no,
like the
I didn't
stakes were
care
there.
because the movie didn't make me care about it.
I think they did though.
Apparently not, because I don't.
Well, I mean, but like they put all that stuff there. It just didn't affect you.
Yeah, that's literally what I just said.
But you're trying to say the movie didn't do its job. The movie did it. It just didn't work on you.
Then that's it. Then it didn't do its job.
For you.
Because I'm the movie watcher.
But most people probably saw it though.
But if everyone doesn't see it, then it didn't work.
Oh my god. Okay, no movie is gonna get the proper response from every person who watches it.
That's too bad. Every movie fails.
And sorry, Edison, your industry's not working too well.
No, he didn't create storytelling.
Well, no, but it said that at the end. It said Edison invented the motion picture industry.
Yeah, the ability to make motion pictures.
Yeah, I know, but the way they worded it though is that he made the motion picture industry.
See, this is the movie not doing its job because you can't read.
That's what it said. I read it right.
You read the words, but you didn't read the sentence. You didn't get the message.
No, they should have said that he catalyzed.
No.
They should have said he catalyzed the motion picture industry.
I literally just made a point about how the movie should have done something, and you said no. It did do that thing.
Oh my gosh.
Nonsense.
But yeah, overall I enjoyed it. What are we at?
We'll just go to ratings.
Oh, okay.
I think we're at like 30 minutes.
Gotcha.
Actually.
But yeah, I think I hit most of the points that I wanted to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry. You talked about there being it being a literal war. And even just now, you said that each side was doing terrible things to each other.
Yeah.
I just want to illustrate one more time how this was a chess match.
Yeah.
And there were literal casualties to each side. A horse died.
Mm-hmm.
A man died.
Yeah, Westinghouse's partner.
Yeah. Reputations were damaged.
Was his wife's death a result of any of this stuff, or did she just have a disease?
She was sick.
Gotcha. I didn't know if any of it came from what they were doing. Or
whether or not it was exacerbated by his neglect.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would count her as a casualty.
I would too. And they didn't really show you how it impacted his relationship with his children.
But it had to have.
Yeah, sure it did. So, yes, this was very much a war on a couple of different levels. And the movie did do that really well.
It's interesting. So what I will say is I saw some people reporting on this movie who must not have watched it, but they were talking, and I mean, I think I understand why they said what they said, but they were talking about Tesla and how they said that he lost this race, which their point was like Edison is the one whose invention we are using in everyday life. So that's what they meant by he lost it. But they were saying he lost this race in this war of this movie we just watched, which is not true. The movie literally said that Tesla and George Westinghouse won it. So that was interesting. I don't know if maybe I misread that article or if they just didn't type it properly, like, or they probably just didn't articulate what they were saying well. Because I think their point was like that Tesla at the end of the day got the short end of the stick, which seems like in life he did, judging from the way he died and like the position he was in when he died. And the fact that I think at the time no one probably cared about his death, even though people probably would now. But so I think that's what they meant. But that misled me because that was before I watched the movie, and so I watched the movie expecting Edison to win this race that was in this movie, right, and he didn't, and that was confusing to me. It was one of those movies where like the protagonist loses but he wins life basically. Yeah. But yeah, so that was just a little thing that I think that people are not watching the movie correctly from what I've seen so far, or at least some people aren't. But overall, I'm trying to see what the right word is. I enjoyed the movie and I respected the movie. I don't know if I liked the movie. I think you can enjoy something that you don't like that much. But like you were saying, it was a little bit boring, but only in the sense that like it wasn't like so explicitly what you were gonna think that it was when you were gonna come to it, and like it was about Westinghouse more than Tesla, which took away from a lot of it. And also it was about business, and I don't know a lot about business. And so if you're not like a really business savvy person and you don't like get really excited about business decisions and things like that, you can see how that could be kind of a drag. You're way more business savvy than I am. So I think you understood this movie a lot better than I did. Or like I understood the movie, but I think that you could see the reasons behind some of their decisions and things like that better than I could. And so, like, a lot of that stuff was a little bit lost on me. Or, like, for example, like, the treatment of Tesla, who was my favorite character throughout the movie, a character, like, he's not a real person, but he was so enjoyable to watch, and I love Nicholas Hoult as an actor, too. And so, I think the treatment of Tesla in this movie bothered me a lot, because I just don't like that stuff in real life too, like just that behavior and that sort of like cutthroat business lifestyle. And so I think that was like part of the reason that like I wouldn't say I liked the movie, but like it was super enjoyable. It was really fun. It had like an awesome cast, like you were saying. So yeah, it was a really really good time for me, and I think I'll say, and I mean visually it was pretty cool. It showed like it gave you like really little like tiny joys, like seeing people witnessing something light up for the first time, like things that we take for granted because we see it all the time and it's always been there. But like for them to just walk into this parking lot and then turn the lights on would have been amazing to them, you know? And so seeing that sort of thing happen and seeing that Ferris wheel lit up and seeing that like Tesla apparently came up with water turbines, which is, I thought that existed way before him, so that was confusing. But so yeah, I mean the movie told us some things that we didn't know, obviously, which was cool. And I mean it was nice to look at, and then it was kind of like a fun watch. So I would say 8, honestly. Oh, it's so much higher than yours.
No.
Oh, okay.
No. As you mentioned, there was a lack of Tesla in this movie.
Yeah.
So now that I think about it, this kind of functions as a history lesson to whoever didn't know about George Westinghouse's contribution to electricity and the delivery of electricity throughout the country. One of the things that I thought was really cool was seeing, and having it explained power lines.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. They were putting up the power lines, and they explained, we can deliver electricity across the country above ground, away from everything, using these power lines. And they showed you them putting up 6 or 7 of them in a row, and it fading to black to insinuate they were going up all over the country.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. A lot of people don't know, apparently, who Michael Shannon is, and that's a shame, because
he's in everything. Well, he's in a lot of stuff.
He's in a lot of stuff, and he's a great actor.
Yeah, he is. Although, to be fair, I can't, name all of his roles off the top of my head, but, I immediately recognize his face when I see him, though.
You will probably remember him most recently from Man of Steel. He was Zod.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that is where I see it or notice him most from.
He's got a lot of movies on Netflix, and he's in the poll, one of the polls. That's why I brought it up.
Gotcha.
Someone literally commented who.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a little excessive.
Yeah, a little bit, but he did a really good job. I like seeing him in everything that he does. Tom Holland, his role seemed a little muted. I'm not sure what Samuel Insull, was that his name?
Yeah.
He was Thomas Edison's secretary, and I'm not sure what role he actually played in Edison's life.
Like in real life.
Yeah. But the movie tried to make him really important, and then at the same time, he was off in the distance doing
He was
stuff.
kind of a character that didn't need to be in the movie, but Tom Holland was there, so
Yeah.
let's do more with this
that's
character.
literally what it felt like.
What I will say about that is the main purpose I saw for his character came at the end when Edison says, "You're me, but a human being."
Yeah.
And I think that they wanted him to be there to add humanity and to balance out those character flaws that were bothering me that weren't bothering you. And I think for people who couldn't get past his character flaws like I didn't, I think that Samuel Insull's character helped by showing Edison as a part of this team that was actually doing something good. Because I think without Samuel Insull balancing him out, I think it would have just come across as he's just a jerk, and that's all I would have seen. Probably.
I kind of saw it the opposite.
Really?
I saw it as the movie letting us know Edison understands that he's a jerk.
Gotcha.
And he sees what it's like for someone who does have his intelligence and can be sociable.
Yeah.
And what their contribution can be if they're given the opportunity.
Yeah.
So he said to him, go do what I was supposed to have been doing my whole life.
Yeah.
Basically. So, again, I was looking at it from Edison's perspective, and through his eyes, he understands that he's not
no, I get that.
The man he's supposed to be, and he's just gonna let Thomas do it.
I
No,
think
not Thomas,
Samuel. I think for me the way that I rationalize Samuel Insull's the importance they put on his character, and this is just the importance of his character for me, is it humanized Thomas Edison's part of the story to me. Because with George Westinghouse, I saw him as just a human being, a normal person. I saw Tesla as just a normal guy who was getting the crap into the stick a lot of the time. I was emotionally invested in them, and George Westinghouse and his wife had a cool kind of exchange going on. But Thomas Edison had his kids who were very minor to the story. They didn't really, except for his son using Morse code with him was cute. And that was a good way that they humanized him too. But his wife died pretty early and didn't really do much. And so without Samuel Insull's character, I just wouldn't have been that emotionally invested in anything that Thomas Edison was going through on the same level as I was with the other characters. And that's just how I saw it.
Yeah, it was all the same to me.
Gotcha.
So,
It's cool though because like Tesla and his storyline like was supported by just his character, which was cool, and he was still interesting. Because I mean, the rest of them all kind of had camps, but Tesla was just on his own the whole time. I mean, he partnered up with George Westinghouse at the end, but like he had to go through some stuff to get
Right.
there. Like,
However, I did want more
yeah,
of the Tesla. I wanted more of Tesla's technology. I wanted like all of the contraptions and delivery systems that he came up with. I think I wanted to know more about that, to see more about that, to hear him talk more about that.
yeah.
But that's not what the movie was about.
The
and that's
movie didn't
fine.
really, yeah, I didn't have any interest in that.
You talked about liking the movie versus enjoying the movie. I did enjoy the movie. I learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the performances of all the
It is a
actors, as we
Hollywood
talked
movie, so
about.
we should fact check some of this stuff, but I'm sure most of it's
Yeah.
accurate.
It said inspired, so they
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
some creative avenues to go down. But I did enjoy the movie. The story I enjoyed also. The one thing that detracts for me is the cinematography. It cuts a lot.
Oh, really?
There are a lot of cuts in this movie, and it seemed like they were cuts just to be there. Like I can't remember the director's name, but I'm not sure.
Do you
what
think
his
that might have
vision
been because of
was.
the reshoots?
Maybe?
Yeah.
But I mean, it seemed like there were 6 or 7 cuts in one scene, where you're in one room. So overall, I'd probably say, I guess I'll give it an 8. Aside from, the cinematography and all of the cuts, they weren't so distracting. I think I got used to it after a while, but it probably took half an hour for me to get used to it. And as the movie started, it felt like it was going to take forever. And there were some parts of it where it did just seem to crawl a bit. But by the end, similar to Joker, you have to take it all in first before you evaluate how you feel about particular parts of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're gonna agree this time with an 8. 8.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's an 8 for us. What I do want to add is my biggest takeaway from the movie, and the two things I'm happiest about are learning that Thomas Edison created the motion pictures, which is super interesting. And then secondly, learning about George Westinghouse and Tesla and how they were the ones who, because I mean, really, when you watch the movie, when you soak in like everything that you saw, yes, Edison did come up with the initial idea, but it would have never been distributed, or at least not as quickly as it was, if it hadn't been for those other two men. And so that I didn't know at all. And so that was something that was really important. That was something that I really liked about the movie. But yeah, so looks like we're giving this a solid 8. You guys should definitely go see it. It's a good watch, and you'll learn some cool things that you probably will see some things that we didn't mention. So yeah. All right. We will see you guys next time.